welcome to Unique. I am Tracy Jo Renfro, and this is Justin Wade. And Justin and I had a God-appointed crossing at 1040 Coffee Shop. He came in for community prayer, and then we found out that he was with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. But then we found out his amazing testimony, his personal testimony, but then also his testimony with FCA, and it really is miraculous. And one of the most favorite things that I love to talk about are people's who, identity, and their do, their purpose, God's plan for them. And then just recently, in the last year, God made available for me that the Jews, David, Paul, all of them knew that they had a Derek. And that when you read in the Bible and they're talking about my pathway, David's talking about my pathway, he's talking about his Derek. That, like it says in Psalm 139, all my days were written out in a book before I even saw the light of day. And so what they believe, and it's oral tradition, and what they pass through generations, is that a book was written in heaven about them. You bring it to earth with you, and you walk it out. It's a supernatural walk. It's a faith walk. And then you finish the circle and return to heaven. But the enemy does not want you to walk out your Derek. So he's always looking for ways to pull you off your Derek or to get you to stop in your tracks. But God's on our side. And if God is for you, who can be against you? And God has been on Justin's side. And if God is on Justin's side, he's on my side and he's on your side, because everybody is his favorites. But with this Derek comes Moed, appointed times and seasons. And they understand that. They go to the temple twice a year. But they have 7 appointed festivals to gather together and celebrate the goodness of God. They know about appointed seasons, and then they also know about appointed places, Hamakon, and the temple where the very same spot that Abraham sacrificed Isaac, that David interceded on the threshing floor and then bought that threshing floor so that the temple could be built there. So, man, Justin, if we could settle in to knowing we have a Derek, there's Moeds in our life, and there's Hamakons in our life, we'd feel much more secure about God's got this instead of we got to figure it out. But just tell a little bit again how you knew that you were leaving teaching and getting into FCA, and then tell us about how you went. He's walking out his Derek, but it wasn't all pie in the sky. I want you to hear his testimony, how he got from here to there.
Yeah, it was definitely a growing season, a trying season, but also, like I said before, had confirmation after confirmation that this is what God had for me to do. Back when I first heard about coming on staff with FCA, it was just a thought bubble that FCA is expanding, it's growing in South Central Missouri. Where is one of those locations that we could expand to? West Plains. And so I was actually informed about that I would be a good candidate, that I lived above reproach, that I knew kind of how a school system functioned. In that, it's something that I should consider and think about. Lo and behold, that was in 2018. FCA didn't come in a position until 2020. And so I had a waiting period and a time where I really got to explore my Derek and why I felt God was calling me to FCA. And to work for his kingdom in full-time ministry.
Oh, 2 years. I mean, 2 years. That just, I know that when Paul said he was called by the Lord, he did not confer with men, and then he went out into the wilderness for 14 years. And there was this whole waiting period. You just think about Moses going out in the wilderness, waiting period. David, Jesus went out in the wilderness. Paul went out in the wilderness. Just that is a testing time, not to destroy you, but to build your faith and to prepare you. And then you did jobs, tough jobs, in between, not necessarily your pick of the best of the best, but then tell about how the Lord got you right where you needed to be so you'd have the connections that you needed to have.
Yeah, I relate a lot to Abraham and God calling him out of Canaan, and just didn't tell him where he was supposed to go, just said, I've got another thing for you, but it's going to be good. And so my whole entire thinking was to stay with education till I retired. God had other plans and set me up for good things to come. But in that 2-year waiting period, I definitely got to grow in my faith, got to rely on God to be my provider. And one of those was through a number of jobs that was just kind of a bridge gap, but God used it for His glory. Through a random connection, leaving education, found out that there was a position in West Plains for the city, and just looking into it at the surface, what do I need to do? Like, I need another job. I don't care what I'm doing. And so I looked into it, and it was for the sports coordinator position in West Plains.
That's just amazing to me. I mean, that's just amazing to me. So keep going. Okay, go ahead.
So, being a former coach and teacher, it was just everything that I enjoy in my life that got brought together in one job where I got to run the youth sports and run the adult sports for the city of West Plains. But looking back, it wasn't by chance. God had placed that in my path to help me grow, but also to expand my knowledge of the West Plains region and to get contacts with coaches and with business leaders, and just familiarize myself with the area that I was going to be working with in FCA. I think most of my schools that I now serve as their area representative had sports teams involved with the City of West Plains Parks and Recreation League. So God definitely worked that out in hindsight to provide me a way to get funded with FCA.
Yeah, and that was a big deal because you had to get funded with FCA, completely funded, prior to being able to take the positions. Is that right?
Yeah, FCA kind of does things differently. They have you get fully funded your first year of ministry, so that you're not concerned about funding, but also at the same time that you just go full out and do ministry.
That's right.
And so through those jobs and through different networking throughout my life, I got fully funded within my first year within 85 days.
85 days.
So just a complete testimony of it was nothing that I had to do with it. It was all God providing to it.
And the typical amount of time?
Most full-time ministers, people are called into full-time ministry. Some are called to Africa. Some are called to Uganda. I was called to South Central Missouri. But usually it takes 6 to 12 months just to build those networks and to get people on board with your vision and what you're doing. And God blessed me ahead of time to get those connections.
He did. I'm going to take just a minute to encourage you. Some of you are in the waiting. And what Justin did was just willing to do anything. And so, he didn't tell he's working night shifts, and he's working any job he can get to be able to bring income into his family. But I know some of you are just on the brink. You are there. And I just want to say, don't give up. Let this testimony be an encouragement to you. Because what he will do for Justin, he will do for you. He will do for his people. He loves his children. And it brings him great pleasure to see his children prosper and to be successful, particularly in the things he's called them to do. So this was Justin's Derek. And Justin didn't know. He said he feels like Abraham. He's just going somewhere. He has no idea where he's going. But he's going. And so that's what matters, is he's moving forward. He's advancing. He's progressing. And the enemy is always attempting to pull you completely off your derrick, or to get you to stop in your tracks. Just get you to stop. Just stop. But you can believe in the midst of that. You can rest in the midst of it. You have to labor to enter into that rest sometimes.
One thing that I love throughout my testimony and my process is just the unsurety of leaving education and pursuing this trial period of FCA being brought to West Plains, that I was just filled with so much supernatural peace, and God, His hand was upon me, assuring me of the path that He had for me. But as Tracy was saying, that Satan wants to rob that any way that he can. Rob that peace that you have,
right.
Get you to worry,
right.
get you to doubt,
right.
But that's when you've got to stand firm and press into God and into His promises, and really study that.
That's good word. Press in, press in. So, okay, so now you're in FCA, official employee of 21 schools. How many counties?
4 counties.
4 counties. But a big spread, big area. And so tell us what your job is. Just describe your job.
So basically, I am a area rep for 21 schools, and so trying to get FCA ministry into each one of those schools. I'm in a really healthy area where a lot of schools that are in my area are really doing some awesome things with FCA already. But like I said earlier, just giving them an opportunity just to come together as a body of believers and to strengthen one another. So making sure that those schools are resourced, that are healthy and that are growing. And then my main ministry is to have an impact and influence on coaches. They call me a coach to a coach. And so I build relationships with those coaches, and then encourage them, equip them in their faith, and then I help them incorporate their faith into what they're doing, into their athletic programs, whether that's through praying, whether that's through introducing scripture into their lessons that they're providing for their athletes. Most coaches want to provide for their kids, want to help them grow into better individuals,
right.
And why not to share the gospel message in that as they're going along.
That's right. And I'll just testify also right here. My brother is a coach in one of his schools, and he's a Christian, and he's a strong Christian. But for someone to come alongside him and encourage him and give him some pointers and give him some direction. Oh yeah, because sometimes we just don't know how to share faith. It's in us, it's part of us, but then putting it into something practical, it's just very helpful. So we're just going to take a break for just a minute, and we want to give you some information because this is good ground. You want to sow seed and reap a harvest of righteousness. This is good ground. This is our kids. This is our soon and upcoming us, that's going to run the world. And so we need, I'm just going to say, I know God put Justin across my path. And I know He did it for a supernatural connection for you. And so just take a minute and look at this information, and then get your pen and paper so you'll know how to help out. Justin Wade and Tracy Jo Renfro talking about Fellowship of Christian Athletes and encouraging you to pray about, ask the Lord about sowing into such a, well, I just feel like it's a ministry of the hour, for the times that we're in. And Paul talks about when we join in and sow into somebody's ministry, how we reap the benefits. And you said it, your words were really good. So share with them what happens when we sow.
Yeah, I'm only one person doing the ministry, but everyone, you guys supporting are just as important. So as you ask God to be in control of your finances and what you should do with your finances,
right.
I'm asking God to help provide the finances so that I can do ministry, and God then orchestrates those two together. So you're just as part of my ministry as I am, and you get to reap the benefits.
That's right.
So God's going to bless you, whether you sow, whether it's through your prayer time or it's financially. God's going to bless you as you give and support FCA ministry.
That's right. I agree 100%. I do believe that the enemy is out to steal the identity of our youth. That's why there's so much confusion these days about gender, and he's shot a fiery dart into this generation to cloud their mind, to deceive them, and to confuse them about who they are. But when they find themselves in Jesus Christ, they find their true identity. And when they find their true identity, they find their Derek. They get on their pathway. And God is so strategic about our pathways. He puts us in regions to take authority in those regions over principalities and powers and mights. That's why the enemy said, well, if I can steal their identity and I can steal their Derek, then I can steal their land. I can steal their territory. So this whole mentoring program of encouraging players, encouraging kids, this whole sphere of influence that's going on is to bring identity back to the kids and to point them in the direction of do good, love mercy, walk humbly before your Lord. Mm-hmm. What does the Lord require of you? And just to get that gospel, which is powerful. It's not mere words. When you bring the gospel, you bring power. Mm-hmm. It's not just another ranting. It's not just another message. With it comes life and light, and we need more life, and we need more light. And we just need this thing to grow the way the Lord wants it to grow. Amen.
Amen.
So a lot of times, particularly kids' perception of ministry is suffering and that you got to sacrifice all. Anyway, there just comes this whole negative connotation of being a witness for Jesus Christ. But the truth is that you can be doing something you absolutely love. Playing sports, playing basketball, volleyball, soccer, whatever it is that you play. And in that, let light shine. And in that, be a witness right in the midst of all your team members. And you got to live a life like that. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm completely blessed in just by what God has orchestrated. My job is to watch sporting events, build relationships with coaches, and talk about Jesus all that I want to. So I'm very blessed, but FCA also allows an opportunity for those athletes to use the platform that they've been given to shine a light and to make a difference in their area.
And isn't that the goodness of the Lord, that He put us right in the middle of something we absolutely love to do and get to spread the gospel right in the middle of shooting a basket. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, Justin. I don't want this to be the last time. I want him to come back, and I don't know what we're going to do different, but I do know we got to get him back on here because he's speaking to a generation that needs to hear his voice. And they need to be able to raise their voice in times like this. So thank you again, and thanks for joining us, and be blessed.
Thank you.